Well, hi everyone. Coach Elise and I are here on YouTube as well as Facebook to talk today about anger. What is your anger trying to tell you? But before we get started, can you just give us a shout out and let us know that we have gotten through the cyber waves and we are live? That's always a good thing to know. I just hate talking away, not knowing if anybody is listening. So it's really helpful if you just give us a hi and let us know you're here.
Excuse me, and maybe where you're from.
Yeah,
we'd love to know
that. Mm-hmm. So let us know we're live. Hello, Nancy. Thank you.
Book. Thank you, Nancy.
And Ellen, thank you for letting us know you're here.
Mm-hmm. So YouTube and Facebook, we're good. We're good to go.
Yeah, Instagram, not today. We can't do Instagram when we have two people on our StreamYard. So hi, Teresa, good to see you. And Susie, good to see you from Houston.
Yeah, hey, Susie.
Yeah. Good to see you, Deborah. Yeah. And Ellen from Massachusetts, and Diane and Sue. Wow, Indiana. Lisa, good. All right, today we're talking about anger and the whole topic of anger and women. I grew up, and Elise is closer to my age than probably a lot of you are, but we grew up with this idea that either you were sweet, innocent, and helpless, like the Cinderella Snow White character, or you were the ugly witch character. So if you got angry, if you expressed your anger, you moved into the ugly. There was no good anger for a good Christian woman back then. I'm not so sure that's true anymore.
Right.
But we're going to be talking about anger and what is our anger trying to tell us? And before we even get started with what it's trying to tell us, let's just talk about the words that we use to define anger. What words would you use besides I feel angry? What words would you use to describe your feeling of anger? If you felt angry inside, what word would you use depending on the intensity of what you felt? Whether you felt a little bit of anger, which is a low intensity, or whether you felt a 10 of anger, which is high intensity, what word would you use? Hello, everyone. So good to see all of you. All right, Patty says frustrated. All right, so frustrated. This is really important because frustrated is angry. It's just not a big level of anger. It's a low level anger, but it is anger. Frustrated. Yeah, a lot of frustrated. Now, Mary says rage. Rage is a high level of anger, right? All right, Susie. Yeah, it's a 10.
Oh, this is good. Susie says overwhelmed.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
Highly annoyed, livid, irritated, infuriated, ticked off. So you can see that if you told someone you were frustrated, but you were really, really enraged, it wouldn't be the right word, right? You really want to know the word that you're feeling so that if you do need to share it with someone, you've got the level. That's correct. Annoyed, tense. Yeah.
Irritated.
So irritated, frustrated, annoyed, tense, overwhelmed, enraged, furious. All right, so you got it. Hot. Not hot flash, but just hot, right?
Hot under the collar, though.
Okay, hurt. Hurt. Yeah, sometimes what we really feel if we dug down deep, what's our anger trying to tell us? Is that we're hurt. We're hurt that someone upset us or they disappointed us or they betrayed us. And it's coming out as anger. But below all that, if we asked ourselves, what's our anger really trying to tell us? It's trying to tell us we're hurt or we're grieving. Fuming is another word that we might use to describe our anger. Free says, I would say I'm frustrated because I felt it was wrong to be angry. Yeah, unfair. We get angry because life is unfair, isn't it? We feel angry because life should be fair, shouldn't it? How many of you believe life should be fair and easy? Let's just make it both fair and easy. And we get upset when it's not that way.
Right.
Okay. All right, so you've just listed a bunch of words that you could use to describe your angry feelings inside. And you've also recognized that those angry feelings might be a result of another feeling of being hurt or scared or
Mhm.
disappointed that life
Desiree says
hasn't been
fearful.
fair. Go ahead, Elise, what you were going to say?
Well, Desiree says fearful. Yes. So oftentimes I'm afraid, and therefore something's happening. And so, I'm so afraid my intensity comes out in anger.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah. And someone earlier said, I used to have to say frustrated because it wasn't okay for me to be angry. How many of you still believe that? How many of you believe that if you feel angry, you're bad or you're shaming yourself or there's something wrong with you for feeling angry, like you're being a sinful person? How many of you believe that
Yeah.
anymore?
Yeah. Put a one if you believe it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. No. Yeah.
Okay. No, sometimes so angry I can't express it. Yeah.
Oh boy, we've all been there.
Yeah. So some people do feel that one guilt, feel guilt. I shouldn't be angry. I shouldn't be angry.
Hmm. Roberta says, not anymore, thanks to your teaching.
Oh.
Beginning to say, you know what? That's an emotion and it's okay. I have
Hmm.
that emotion. What is that telling me though? How
Yeah.
is it informing me? Yeah.
Hmm.
That's what we're going to continue to talk about tonight.
Hmm. Amy said, I used to all the time, but not after a year of listening to you. So good, good. Now, Paul says something really interesting in Ephesians. He says, in your anger, do not sin. Right.
Right.
So he's not saying do not be angry. Now he doesn't, but James says be slow to become angry. Don't let yourself be hot tempered. Proverbs says that's not a good quality in your character, but we
Right.
are going to get angry at things because there's certainly things to get angry about.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
we're to be slow to be angry, but we do get angry. But there's no sin in getting angry. There's no sin. It's a warning bell, just like there's no sin in getting a headache or a stomach ache. It's a warning bell that something's wrong. Pay attention.
Right.
Pay attention. It could be that I'm hurt. It
Right.
could be that I'm over functioning and I'm getting more and more angry that nobody's appreciating me so much.
Right. Yeah.
It could be I'm really scared. It could be I'm hurt that I had expectations of someone coming through for me and they didn't, and it really makes me mad.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Let's hear from some of you. What is that? What does your anger tell you? What do you feel like your anger is signaling to you? If you stopped and paused and said, "What is this anger telling me? What is this emotion saying to me? Can I
Mhm.
listen to it instead of just reacting out of it?" Which
Mhm.
is pretty easy to do with anger.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about that some more. But what is it telling you?
Yeah. Someone said, I thought this was interesting. She said, I think we should get angry, but not at people. And I wonder if Desiree, you could explain that a little bit more, that we shouldn't get angry at people. So I'm curious about that. If you could expound on that. What does your anger tell you? So Gabrielle saying, my anger is telling me I am over functioning. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
That was
Now,
something, yeah, that was something for me. That was a red flag. I would get resentful. I would get really angry and resentful. And it was telling me that I was doing more than I should be doing. And I was resenting that everybody wasn't appreciating me like I wanted them to. Right?
right. I used to say, really, if you feel resentful, that's kind of your, kind of the warning track or the red flag that it's time to speak up and really pay attention
Mhm, mhm.
when you feel that resentment. And
Yeah.
oftentimes it comes out in anger, right?
Mhm.
Unmet needs.
All
Something.
right. Something is wrong. Something is wrong. Yes. My anger often tells me that I'm noticing an injustice or that I am exhausted. Hmm. Yeah. So these are different things to notice without beating yourself up. Just like if you noticed that you had an itch somewhere or that you had a stomach ache or that you had a headache or something else was off in your body, it would be helpful for you to notice that so that you could take care of yourself,
Right.
right? We don't want to just ignore those bodily signals. We want to pay attention. If I notice that I have to go to the bathroom, I'm not going to shame myself about that. I'm going to take care of myself about that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I have limited capacity to hold that. And so if
Mm-hmm.
I notice that I'm full of anger, what do we do with that? Yeah, Patty said it's a red flag to stop and analyze my feelings and why am I feeling this?
Absolutely.
Yeah, Linda says, I'm angry when I'm not heard.
Right.
I'm trying to be heard and I'm not being heard.
Right.
When you get violated, you get angry. Absolutely. And you should be angry, right? If we didn't get angry, it's just sort of like when you put your hand on a hot stove and it burns your hand, that's telling you something. Get your hand off the stove, right? It helps you stay safe. When you're violated, when you're angry, it helps you to get away from the person, to get safe. If you didn't have your feelings, you wouldn't be able to protect yourself. You wouldn't be able to do what you need to do to get out of there.
Leslie, I love that we're really talking about this, because anger really is that place where so many of us really do shame ourselves or feel bad that I'm angry. That it's somehow it's not ladylike, as you said, at the beginning. It's not, to feel angry. But when we're paying attention to it, we really then can begin to explore. And it's that notice piece, it's, oftentimes anger takes over pretty easily, and we begin to react out of anger. Instead of being able to pause and notice it. And I love how just these questions and what's coming in is basically we're inviting you all to notice what that anger is telling us. What is it telling you? Can you slow down? Can you pause long enough? And I think when our body gets incited with anger, pause is a hard thing. Reactivity is the easy thing. Let me tell you how angry I am, instead of really being able to pause and slow down and say, wow, what is that saying? What is that telling?
Wow. We're doing a workshop. I'm doing a workshop next Friday, on the 5th, next Tuesday. Change your story, change your life. And I want to share with you a story about when I got really, really angry at my boss. It was a Christian counseling center. It was a boss. It was a Christian counselor. I was so angry. And I want you to picture two different outcomes of this story, depending on how I decide to handle my anger. Okay, because this is important. And if you haven't signed up for the workshop yet, you can go to leslievernick.com/join workshop. But let me tell you the story, and then you tell me what the ending was. All right. So I was a Christian counselor. I was working part-time in an office where my boss didn't have a high value for women counselors. So I was only allowed to counsel women. I wasn't supposed to counsel couples or men. I was okay with that because I was just working part-time. I didn't agree with him, but I was willing to submit to his leadership. He was the boss and I was working there. So only working 2 days a week. So I come into my office one day and my office is completely dismantled. Like everything in my drawers is in a box. Everything on my walls is in a box on the floor. And I go out to the office and I said, what happened in my office? And so she said, he hired a full-time person and he gets that office. You get to use that back office, whenever you come in. Now, I could understand that. If they hired someone full-time and they wanted the bigger office and all of that, that was totally not anything I should get angry about. What I was angry about is that he just threw my stuff in a box and he didn't even tell me that he hired a full-time person and that he was even looking, not that I wanted the job, but that he was looking for a full-time person. He hired another man. I was so mad. My temperature went from 0 to 10. I was shaking. I was so mad. So how does this story play out? What did I do? Well, I had two choices. I could march in and give him a piece of my mind, which I was very tempted to do. And I probably would have said things that I regret in ways that I would have regretted and ways that would have made me look like a fool, right? Like a raging maniac fool, because that's how I felt inside. Not a fool, but I felt like a raging maniac. I was not just mad. I was furious, right? And so that's not what I did. What I did was I told them I had to go home, that I was not feeling well. And I was not feeling well. Cancel all my appointments. I went home that day. I sobbed my eyes out. I was so hurt because I was disrespected. Sobbed my eyes out. I spent the next 2 or 3 days writing awful letters to him. Everything I wanted to say, I said. Of course, I didn't send it, but I processed all my feelings. I talked it out loud to myself over and over what I wanted to say. And then the next week I went back in and told him how I felt. Now, how do you imagine the story ended differently? When I honored myself first, but I still addressed the problem. My anger was telling me something's wrong, and it was wrong. It was wrong. And I had to deal with it. But if I had dealt with it in a reactive kind of way,
Right.
I don't think he would have heard me. I
Right.
think he would have said, I think she needs to go. Right? She's not even competent to counsel. She can't control her own feelings. But I did manage my feelings. Not well. I got out the door in time to like vomit in the car on the way home. But I did control myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't stay there working. I had to call in sick. I'm sick. I got to go home.
Mm-hmm.
And I dealt with it.
Mm-hmm.
But do you see how the story ends? So I talked to him. I didn't cry. I had already worked through my emotions. I was afraid I would bawl when I told him how I felt.
Mm-hmm.
I was not valued. But at the time he said, I totally blew it. I didn't handle it well. I did hire him. I'm sorry I didn't tell you. I should have told you. And I apologize.
Mm-hmm.
So it was the best outcome I could have hoped for from this person.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I was able to handle my side of the street well. If I hadn't handled my side of the street well as an angry woman, I would have been dismissed, disrespected even more, because he wouldn't have heard me.
Right.
He would have just seen me as a crazy lunatic woman who was probably menstruating at the time. That's how he would have seen me.
Sure.
Does that ever happen to you, where you just lose it? And of course they, cater to you in the moment, but they think that you're nuts because you didn't handle yourself well in the moment.
Leslie, one part of the story that I like about that is that you recognized in your own self how angry you were.
Yeah.
Right?
I was furious.
And you took care of yourself first.
Yes.
Right? You really, and it took days for you to take care of yourself.
Right.
It wasn't just 30 minutes and you walked back in,
Mm-hmm.
right? You didn't just sit in the car and then walk back in. It took days. It took you journaling and writing it out.
Mm-hmm. I knew that if I opened my mouth, I would vomit. I would vomit a host of words. I had done that in the past in other situations, so I didn't want to do it here. I would vomit out my rage and I would humiliate myself.
Right.
And dishonor myself.
Right.
Even though he had dishonored me, I would dishonor myself, and I didn't want to do that anymore.
Right. And you took the time it took to do that and walk back in and honor yourself and speak to him respectfully. Mm-hmm. What a beautiful outcome because of that, really taking care of yourself. And I think that that's one of the things that it's so easy, especially with anger, to skip over, right? It's just one of those feelings that really has a lot of energy to it and drive and push. And it takes a lot of pause and a lot of, I think, kind of, in your language, these big circle, who you want it to be. You made a decision. I would say long before then of who you wanted to be in that moment. Right. And you were able to say, this is not who I want to be. I better get myself out of here.
Mm-hmm. And I also will say that I was fully prepared to leave that position if he hadn't owned what he did. So I was fully prepared to say, I'm not willing to work for someone who treats his employees this way.
Yeah.
If he couldn't own. I'm all about forgiveness. I'm all about people mess up if they can own it. Yeah. Right. So he was able to own it as long as I wasn't attacking him in the moment. I expressed how I felt, but I wasn't doing it in a bullying, attacking, you're a horrible person kind of way. And so he was able to hear it and he was able to own it. And so I think that there are times that you must confront your pastor at things he's doing or saying wrong, or you must confront your counselor or your husband or your adult child. Right. You must talk to them about it. But if you do it, especially in the moment of its greatest intensity, it usually backfires on you as a woman. It might not as a man, but it usually does as a woman, because we're discounted and dismissed as crazy emotional versus we have a valid point. And I'm sorry that that's our situation as a woman, that if we got really angry, it's less likely that we will be respected for what we say than if we can be very firm and calm when we say it. But understand that that's often the case.
Right. So true. So true. Yeah. And if I could share a moment story that had somewhat of a victory as well, but when I was raising my children, There was a time when we felt like, one of my children kind of got off the reservation there a little bit, and it was fearful. I mean, some behaviors that were going on were making me very, very afraid. And I was responding in anger, kind of, how dare you, and, just 1,000 things, and responded in anger. And I got some feedback, not from him, but from somebody else at some point, and said that he had said, my mother is so angry. Right. And I was like, what? That's, and I was really kind of appalled at the time. And then as I think the Holy Spirit really said, you really are, you're reacting in anger, and so I did not know at the time, though. I knew I was fearful, but I wasn't able to make that connection of what's this anger about. I was applying it always. You're making me angry. If you would just stop what you're doing, I will be okay, right? Instead of being able to pause and look at myself and say, what's driving that anger? What's driving that anger? It took me about 2 weeks to digest that thought, and went back to him and really apologized for that anger and said, I really do want to do things differently going forward. And it took me a while to figure that out, though. So how will I now respond when I'm feeling fearful? And it took me a while to do that. And I think that really for many, many years, there was a very positive outcome from me being able to control my anger and to recognize that fear was driving that anger. And so how was I going to calm myself down when I had no control on this other side? Right. And so really, I love how we have to kind of transition, because anger can just consume us. I mean, it'll just take over. But when we really investigate what is driving that, now how might I manage myself with that feeling? What's it informing me of? And how will I take control of that?
Yeah, I love that you say that, Elise, because fear is often the driver of anger. So is hurt. And I remember, and I shared last time, that I was betrayed by a best friend of 25 years. And, I was so hurt by what she did and her response to what she did. I was so hurt as a friend, and I was angry. And there was no healing it. So some of you might be married to someone who there's no healing of the hurt. There's no recognition. They don't care. They don't want to apologize. They don't want to own what they've done. And this friend wouldn't and didn't. And it was so painful, because you have to accept, you don't have to, I guess, but if you want to heal, you have to accept reality.
Right.
And the reality is that you can't control another person, just like, Elise, you couldn't control your son, or I can't control my friend, or you can't control your husband. And so how do you take care of you when someone has harmed you? You have every reason to be angry. Yes, you do. Or every reason to be hurt, but you don't want to stay stuck in that place for the rest of your life. Right. And that's what we're going to be talking about when we talk about change your story, change your life. Some of us get stuck in those stories. I was betrayed. I was victimized. I was raped as a child, or I was, abused, or and it's all true. It's true. I was abused as a child, and it's true. And we can get really stuck in there because we have every right and every reason to be angry. But our anger is telling us that in some ways, it's a good thing that we're angry, right? Because it's saying, hey, wait a minute, I am valuable, right? And that is life-saving for you. Now, the other person may not treat you like you're worth it, but because you're angry, there's something inside of you that's saying, I am worth it. I am worth it. I am worth treating decently. How dare you not treat me decently? And we keep begging them to change, when in fact, maybe it's us who needs to change, and not take it, but to have better boundaries of, hey, this person doesn't honor me, and I'm not going to hang out with them anymore.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I think that was the thing that I think made a big difference for me, of really just kind of saying, I can only control me. Right. And how did I want to control me? I didn't want to react in that way. And it was important that I, certainly had a voice, and that I spoke up, and that I was still teaching and training and, cautioning my children. But at the end of the day, they had to control themselves, not me. Right. My anger was trying to control the situation. And it was It wasn't working. So,
Mhm,
yeah.
mhm.
So pain.
Yeah,
Yeah, I feel stuck.
yeah.
Let's look at some. Yeah.
So we've said a couple things. We want to keep this to an hour tonight because I know this is a busy time of year for everyone, and we want to try to honor your time for being here. But we've said a couple things. One is anger is not sinful.
Right.
Our feelings are not sinful. Jesus had feelings. He had a bunch of feelings, the whole range of feelings. So how we handle those things are could be sinful, and so we have to learn to have that little pause between
Mhm.
noticing what we feel,
Mhm.
honoring that. Wow, I am really angry. And
Mhm.
right now, I'm not capable of handling this really well. It's so big. I'm so angry, like my story at work. I
Mhm.
cannot
Right.
speak in any good way right now. I'm just going to come out with some really bad things if I open my mouth. So
Right.
I've got to go take care of me
Right.
before I can take care of the situation without feeling guilty or like, what's wrong with me? Just as if I knew I was sick, physically sick. If I knew I got the flu when I got to work, I'd be having to go home. I don't want to sit and try to counsel someone with the flu.
Right.
It's, so you have to say to yourself, I have to take care of me
Right.
before I can take care of the us or the situation.
Right.
Because if I
Right.
show up in just reactive mode,
Right.
then it's going to wreck me and it's going to wreck us.
Right. Right. And
So
I
that's
think
the
that was
first
the
step.
difference between your story and my own story is that I wasn't taking care of me until I realized I needed to take care of me. And
Yeah.
that's why I really want to invite our ladies, are you taking care of yourself? Right?
Mhm.
Because it's so easy to see the harm or the error or the, what's causing anger on the other side of us and
Mhm.
really believe, and it's probably true if they would stop that behavior or if they would practice something different or, that your anger probably would go down. But now
Mhm.
you're putting, the responsibility of some of your emotions in somebody else's hands, which that's not their responsibility. It's your responsibility. And
Mhm.
so that taking care of, now that I know from experience, to take care of me first. And there's a phrase that we all kind of know familiar, practice makes perfect. And I want to, kind of know that's not true, but
Mhm.
practice does make permanence, right? And we can begin to practice taking care of ourselves. And the more we do that, the easier it becomes. The more we recognize, whoa, I'm really mad. How do I take care of myself right now
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
that I have the strength and wherewithal to show up really as God's created me to show up and in the best way I want to show up.
Mhm.
And I can show up very firm. That may be the lowest level of anger, kind of a firm voice. Not timid, not shy, I can show up assertively, not aggressively, but assertively, and express myself without tipping the edge, without really being angry. And
Mhm.
so, and sometimes, so oftentimes we only kind of have two gears. Either I'm soft or I'm loud, right? And so really that I'm glad that we did this this scale of feelings around anger, that really
Mhm.
there is a lower scale and it works up to this. And can we recognize that? Frustrated is starting to work up, right, towards higher anger. And so what is that frustration really telling me? And can I take
Mhm.
care of myself? Can I pause? Can I practice pausing? Can I practice notice what's going on? And then choose what I'm going to do next. And, your story really goes through those three motions of being able to do that.
Yeah, and we're gonna really unpack those 3 motions of
Mhm.
pausing, choosing, noticing, and what you do next,
Mhm.
in our workshop. So if that's something that you wanna learn to do better, it
Mhm.
does change the outcome of your story. Nancy says this, "I had to learn my value. I am not gonna beg or ask or even desire someone who doesn't value me. I've
Yes.
learned that not everyone has the right to my story. I
Oh, I love
noticed recently that I allowed my emotions to hijack my values.
Mm.
I recognized it and changed the story. And this is so important. I remember, Elise, you're talking about parenting. I remember one time my son got under my skin, and teenagers, as they do, they can get under your skin. And he was just mouthing off to me. And I just said, I mean, I didn't curse him out or anything, but I said some hard things back. And he said, "Mom, you're the one who's supposed to be the Christian counselor." And He was right. He was
Yeah.
calling me out. He was
Yeah.
the kid, and I was acting like the kid right back, right?
Yeah.
And so I allowed my emotions to hijack my values, that I want to be a good parent, that I want to be a godly woman, even when I'm furious.
Right.
Even when I'm furious,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And so that is such a wise thing that she said, that
Yes.
I realized, because it happens to all of us, the best of us.
Mm.
Our emotions can hijack our values. And when that happens, we end up doing or showing up in a way that we feel bad about ourselves.
Mhm.
Just like if you have the value that you want to be a faithful spouse,
Right.
and you end up having a one-night stand with someone,
Mhm.
you're not going to feel good about that. Your emotions hijacked your values.
Mhm.
And whenever you decide to do that, you don't feel good about you. You
Right.
do not, you cannot, when your emotions hijack your values.
Right.
So we're going to talk about that whole process during the workshop. And you're going to have these 3 shifts that you need to take if you don't want to let that continue to happen, so that your storyline doesn't get ruined. Because if you keep acting that way, you're going to end up feeling like, I'm not a godly woman, and what am I doing with my life? This is crazy.
Right.
And so it really does impact your story. And so we want to teach you how to unpack that and how to really learn to press pause and notice.
Right. Right. I love at the very end, she says, I recognized it. I was
Mhm.
aware of it, and
Yeah.
it changed the story.
Yeah.
And that's so beautiful. Thank you,
Mhm.
Nancy, for
Mhm.
sharing. That's
So we've got
awesome.
some questions here, Elise.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to move to questions. I'll start reading the first one and give you the first chance to answer. How do
Okay.
I release anger from my body in a healthy way when the body keeps the score from overload in my mind and heart?
Oh gosh, that's good. I think there are a few ways, kind of quick and simple. One is that, breathing, really pausing and being able to give yourself a breath and really kind of lower that intensity of your nervous system being hijacked. And that breath work will do that, kind of simple breath work. And honestly, I think so oftentimes, and I'm not sure that I do this as much as I would like to do it, but really beginning to pause, pressing pause, and being prayerful in this moment, being aware and being prayerful, and not, and so just 2 simple things can really change the whole thing. And I think basically what we're saying, you have to pause and then participate in something different than getting hijacked. Prayer, breathing, something that will calm your nervous system back down.
Yeah, and I would say releasing anger from your body in a healthy way. So I would say running on a treadmill as
Mhm.
fast as you can,
Mhm.
so that you're releasing that
Wow.
fury. If it's that high, if it's not just irritated.
For sure.
Irritated you can do with breath work. You can, you can release it that way. But if you're in the fury mode, I will walk really fast as
Mhm.
I possibly can, or run in place as
Mhm.
fast as I can. I might breathe out
Mhm.
like that, really. So you're just purposely
Mhm. Exhale.
rebalancing the oxygen in your body, or you're releasing some of that
Mhm.
anger's tension that your
Mhm.
body is holding, so that you can think more clearly.
Mhm.
Cold water, just plunge your hands into ice water. That will help you just to kind of calm your nervous system down. So those would be a couple things. And then I find it helpful to write. I have all kinds of letters to people that I've written that I would never send in a million years. But for
Mhm.
me, I'm a very verbal person, and I need to get it out. And so
Mhm.
for me to just get it out, and I don't have to pretty it up. I don't have to worry about how they're going to feel, because I'm not going to send it. I just need to get my feelings out. And sometimes I never even reread it. I just need to get it out. Those would be some ways to help your body release that, so that you can just calm
Mhm.
down,
Mhm.
and then respond. How are you going to handle this
Mhm.
situation
Yeah.
from a better place?
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, April says we forget to breathe when we're upset. We certainly.
So it's all bottled up right here,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, so let's get some things in the chat. What do you do? What do you do? Give us some other hints. What do you do when you're furious, when you're at the 10 level of anger? You're
Mhm.
so furious that you. The other thing I've done is I've broken pencils. I'm just breaking pencils, just like,
Mhm. Mhm.
has sort of helped me feel like I'm using that energy in a
Mhm.
way that's not hurting anything but the pencil. I just throw them away. But
Mhm.
those would be some ways that you can do that. So what ways do you get rid of that energy that's so physically. What do you do to help your body get rid of that rage inside?
Mm-hmm.
Anybody have any suggestions?
Yeah.
I go to another room, leave the house, go for a walk. I get extremely quiet, cry. I cry, and crying helps. Like when you're in a rage and you just sob yourself, angry, snot yourself down. You don't want to do that in front of your boss. That's what I was afraid I was going to do. If I started really getting angry, I wouldn't want to say the thing. So it would just come out in tears and boo-hooing. And I didn't want to do that in front of him. That would be humiliating myself.
Right. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, sometimes I'm so amped up, I need a quick release from my energy running or kickboxing.
Yeah.
Splash my face. Hold an ice cube. Another one.
Yeah.
Right? Just do
scream.
that.
Yeah, scream. Go in your garage and give a good scream. Yeah, sometimes that helps.
Yeah. And sometimes people may not be as loud. I think we need to let that energy out. So for some people, just take a quiet walk. We'll just begin to release it. So people need to go to a calmer place. So I hum. I like that.
I think Lisa Turkhurst and I were listening to some music that she listened to when she was going through her divorce, and she was really upset about some things. And she had some pretty strong songs that she would listen to about, the narcissist and, it's not going to get the best of me, and fight song and, all those kind of things. And she would just walk fast, and she would sing, and she would, sing in some worship songs where you could just sing your heart out. And they weren't necessarily praise songs. They were just help, and just surrender songs, but getting your voice to sing can calm your parasympathetic nervous system down a little bit.
Right. Yeah.
Punch pillows. Small body gloves. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. Some good tips.
Yeah. Lauren says maybe yeah.
Yeah.
That's cute.
Good. How much do I let my children ages 0 to 6 see my anger, which is a reaction to their dad's toxicity? How honest should I be about their dad's hurtful behavior?
That's a great question. Well, one, I would always want to try to put a lid on just real anger around, especially around small children. I don't think they know to manage, the fear of what's happening to mom. So, to the best of your ability, I would, try to keep it low. And certainly, just like anything, age appropriate. I don't think small children can really understand the dynamics going on with adults oftentimes. And so, but they do understand being angry. That's why they hit their brother and their sister, or they take toys, or, things like that. So maybe we can express in very, very small ways. Mommy and daddy aren't always happy with one another, but we're okay, to the best of, what could be truthful. But again, that small of age, I think we want to do it very age appropriately and very, very, very small things. I mean, their maturity level is very, very low. And so what is it? Small heads on small shoulders. So they don't get big shoulders yet. So, and they can't carry that.
So you don't want to get angry in a way that would frighten them.
Right.
I think that's really the key. Their dad may be already doing that, but you don't want to lie and pretend either. So there's this fine balance, and that's why it's so important that you take care of you, so that you have a place to unload some of that and express some of that. So you don't want to say everything is great, and we're just, you don't want to lie to your kids in that they would be totally shocked that there's a family problem, but you don't want to be hysterical and throwing things and, angry and cursing up a storm to their dad either in front of them. So I think there's that balance of saying, daddy hurt my feelings, and I'm going to go in my bedroom and take some time to talk to God. Right. So appropriate, or, daddy just upset me right now by something he said or something he did, and mommy's got to go calm down. I got to go take a time out. So you're actually showing them by healthy self-care and honesty that people do upset us. And when people do upset us, we need to take care of ourselves so that we don't do something stupid in the process. And so you're modeling for them really good self-care and really good boundaries of what you say and what you don't say. Without saying all that, you're showing them. And so they'll not forget that if later on when they're 10, you have to say, Daddy and I are getting divorced. They're going to remember that, yeah, mommy's been having a hard time with daddy for a long time, off and on. Not, oh my gosh, mom, I thought you were so happy. How could you want to leave dad? We are such a good family. They won't have that shock factor because you've tried so hard to be, the pretend Christian woman who has the happy smiling face and everything's fine, even though you're dying inside. So you really want to be honest as age appropriate in appropriate ways when you can.
Yeah. My sons are 9 and 12. And so I think the same thing goes. I mean, we have a little bigger shoulders and a little, so they can see more. They're more mature. They know. But again, back to age appropriate. And I love what Leslie said. And it's almost been the theme a little bit tonight is this self-care piece. Like, how do I take care of myself, so that I can take care of them, the children well. Right. And so taking care. And that's really part of the great commandment is that we would love others, as we love ourselves. And so God is saying, please take care of yourself so that you can love others, whatever the situation is.
Mm-hmm. And I think that, like Elise said, they're going to get angry with each other at times. And so when you show them and model them, hey, I feel angry at you right now. You just disobeyed me and you were playing with the ball and now you broke my light. And I'm kind of angry at you right now. And mommy's going to go take a time out so I can calm down before I discipline you. Right? So that you're modeling for them that, yes, we feel angry. And that doesn't mean we just flip out and start acting like an animal. Right. And so you teach your children that, you model that for your children so that when they feel angry at their sister, they might say, you're making me mad right now. I'm going to my room and calming down. Right. And that would be a win. That would be a win if they could begin to do that and take responsibility. You're not responsible for what the other person did, but you are responsible for how you handle it. Right. And I think this is the disconnect. I think so often in our culture, we feel because someone did something wrong, we have license to act out. Mm-hmm. And how we act out matters. And it matters to our personal integrity and our authenticity and our values. And it matters to the other person. And it can actually cause a lot of damage. Cause a lot more damage than already has been caused. Right. So.
Leslie, as you were saying that, I think so oftentimes when there's so much tension between, husband and wife, two adults, is that we get so fearful about the children seeing things. And there's certainly things that they shouldn't be seeing. But this can really what you were demonstrating can be a beautiful opportunity to begin to teach children about conflict resolution, right? And how to take care of ourselves, how to resolve conflict and the things that we need to do instead of always kind of hiding them from that and pretending. Right now, 2-year-olds aren't really, but 2-year-olds are pretty emotional. So maybe we can be doing it with 2-year-olds as well. But so oftentimes, when we're, working with clients, I hear so much protection. And certainly as a mother, we're going to do that. But also I want to build strength. Like, okay, this is a situation. How do I teach them how to manage themselves in this hard situation? And it's hard.
Yeah, I've always been a believer at telling our children the truth, but not the whole truth. And what I mean by that is, so if you're upset about something, it would be better for you to admit it and to say the bare bones of what you're upset about. You don't have to tell the whole story like, oh, I just got diagnosed with breast cancer. Maybe you're not ready to say that. But if you've just gotten a health scare and you found a lump in your breast and you're crying and your kids go, Mom, what's wrong? And you go, nothing. I just got onions in my eyes after cutting them. You don't want to lie to them. So if you just found a lump in your breast and you're crying and they catch you doing it, you say, Mommy's a little scared about something and I feel a little bit nervous and I'm going to call the doctor and make sure everything's okay. Maybe that's about as much truth as you need to tell them right then. But you've told them the truth. Right? You've owned your feelings, you've defined them for them, and you told them what you're going to do. You're not falling apart in front of them, but since they've caught you sharing or expressing an emotion maybe that you didn't intend for them to see, you do want to explain that to them. Because if you don't explain it to them, guess what they're going to do? They're going to make up a story in their head as to why you're feeling that way. And they're going to say, well, Mom's mad at me because I didn't help her today. Mom's mad at me because they don't know why you're mad or why you're sad. It'd be better to give them a story that's true. Even if it's not in full technicolor true, it's true. And let them know why. I'm sad right now because Daddy and I had a fight. You know how when you get in a fight with your friend, you feel sad? Well, when Daddy and I get into a fight, I get sad too. You don't have to talk about what it's about. You don't have to say, I hate him and I'm on the verge of leaving. You don't have to say any of that.
Right.
But you can say, Daddy and I just had disagreement. And sometimes when people disagree with things, they feel sad inside or they feel mad inside. And that's what I'm feeling right now. You're giving your children a vocabulary and de-shaming the very reality of relationship issues and emotions, right? Which is all good parenting, even if it's hard stuff.
It is.
Yeah. So let's do the last one. If there's any other questions, we're going to be ending after this last one. So we'll be ending it a little bit sooner than that. We have another Facebook Live tomorrow morning as well. How do I guard my heart without it being misinterpreted as being angry? I attend the same church as my husband. We are in the process of a divorce. I'm not angry anymore, just not overly friendly. So my question to you would be, are you concerned about them misinterpreting it, or are you not sure what the difference is?
Yeah.
Because you can't control what they think.
Right.
Obviously, if you could control what they think, you probably wouldn't be going through a divorce, right? So they're going to think what they want to think. Right? But how do you process what you're doing in terms of guarding your heart versus you're saying, I'm not angry. So do you feel comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Or are your pastors questioning that? I mean, what's the rub here? Where are you finding it conflictual? Yeah. Why would you be overly friendly if you're going through a divorce with someone? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't go together.
Right.
Right. Any thoughts, Elise?
Well, it's just, there's a place when it says guard your heart, there is a place that visually I kind of want to go like this, to put some level of protection, guardrails. There's just protection in that very word guard, right? And so for some people, guarding their heart is to get quiet and to get still and to, we're not going to shell up or, go completely, that we don't speak, but to guard our heart may be that we are quiet for a while. And so that we have time, kind of the theme of our, tonight, to care for ourselves. I don't know how to answer all the questions. I don't know what to say to everyone. I don't know how to, so I'm going to, guard my heart and protect myself and, potentially be a little quieter than I normally have been, but I'm okay. And I think one of the things that you brought out at the beginning was that it, from her question, it did sound like she was afraid of what others were saying, right? And that good old fear of man that snags us every time. And I'm so glad that you noticed that, of being afraid of what others are thinking and what others are saying. And we really encourage you. I mean, I think that that's a good thought and it's something we could be aware of, but we don't want to let it control us. I want you to care for yourself and guard your heart.
Yeah, and then we can think of guarding our heart in lots of different ways. And so I think of guarding your heart against anger, against, bitterness and resentment, which is anger. We've talked about anger. What is it telling us? And we want to deal with it because if we don't deal with it, it does harden. It hardens into resentment and bitterness. And that begins to deform us. Anger isn't the sin, but resentment and bitterness can be because we didn't deal with our anger. And so guarding our heart against holding on to anger too long or not forgiving or all the things that God tells us to do. So we guard our heart, not just against someone else, but we guard our heart against going against our values. And so I think that it's important for us not to feel like we have to defend that. The Bible tells us above all else, do it. So if someone doesn't understand or questions that, to say, the Bible tells me to guard my heart, and that's what I'm doing. I'm going through a very tender time right now. If I were in surgery, if I had heart surgery, I would guard my heart. I would have bandages over it. I would have, I wouldn't be letting someone, hug me hard. I would be guarding my heart because it's sensitive, it's tender, it's just been through surgery, it's been through trauma, and I'm going to protect it so that it can heal. I don't know that you need to justify or explain that to people. I don't think anybody in their right mind would expect you to be open and transparent with someone you're going through a divorce with. That just doesn't make sense. Doesn't mean you're not going to be kind or polite and superficially friendly if you bump into each other, but it doesn't mean you're going to go out of your way to have any kind of conversation with this person who's injured you. And so, or that you're in a, in a conflict with through divorce. And so I think that we have this idea in our Christian world that we have to be, if we're going to be authentic, we have to be transparent. And I don't think that's true. So I'm just going to use my clothes as an example. So I am wearing the clothes I want to wear. These are clothes I like to wear. I'm never going to get on Facebook naked, ever, ever, ever. Only one person gets to see me that way. It's not you guys, okay? So, and I don't even like him to see me that way these days because you feel all saggy and old. But what I'm saying is, you don't give everybody access to you, right? So I wear the clothes. They're genuine clothes. They're my clothes. I like these clothes. I'm not dressing up in a costume pretending I'm somebody I'm not. I'm authentic, but I'm not naked. Right? I'm not naked. And I don't think that's a sin. I don't think that's a sin. And I don't think you need to feel at all apologetic for wearing clothes in church with other people, and you can still be real and authentic and still have a guard around your body.
Right. Well, discretion for sure. I love your examples. They're fun. Yeah, that's exactly it. So very fun. Very fun.
So, and I tell people, don't take off all your clothes in front of everybody, right? That makes you way too vulnerable. Really.
I use the expression "open up the kimono," right? And so, opening up the kimono, like, and letting everybody see that, right? Yeah, that's reserved for for safety.
The most trusted, safe relationship.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
You don't do that with everybody. And so obviously, if you're getting a divorce, this relationship has been fractured. There isn't trust or safety.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So I don't see
heart.
Yeah. So what we'd like to do in closing is, could you let us know what your takeaway was from today? What was one thing that you learned about yourself, or about processing your emotion of anger, or how to describe it or name it, or how to think about it, or how you want to be when you feel it, or what you need to do to take care of it? I mean, we talked about lots of different things today, but what's one takeaway for you? I think it's always helpful to end these conversations with a takeaway of, what do I need, or what did I hear today that was just for me?
Right. Yeah. Love to hear that.
What did you get out of today? Yeah, guard your heart, protection. Don't let everyone have access to you. Self-care. Yeah. What else?
I hope that feels good to you ladies, that, this guard your heart is such a beautiful scripture. Really, I mean, there's a lot of meaning that we can, different meanings that we can apply to it, but it is a place of safety and, and protection. And God says, do it. It's the wellspring of life. Don't give it away.
Yeah. Right? And don't allow yourself to be guilt tripped into exposing yourself to everybody. Just like you wouldn't feel guilty if someone said, "Oh, I think you're so selfish. You won't give me your ATM card and the password. Why not? What's wrong with you? I thought you were a Christian." You wouldn't think anything of that person. Like, what are you trying to make me feel guilty for that? Right. But yet emotionally, people make us feel guilty if we're not willing to be naked in front of them, and we're not. We shouldn't be.
Right. Exactly.
Anger can happen when I'm feeling hurt. April says, I need to be honest with my kids. Yeah. Amy says, you validated how I feel about my anger. I have a right to take care of myself.
Yes. Good.
For a very long time, I didn't value me, and the anger was telling me something important. And one of them is, you've been wronged. And because you're angry about that, it shows you're valuing you, which is better than you devaluing you, as well as the other person devaluing you. Someone who just lets themselves be a victim over and over again, and abused and abused and abused, they're in far more trouble. They're in deeper despair than someone who gets angry. Anger is better than being just depressed and unable to take care of yourself. Yeah.
Right.
Self-care is not selfish when it comes to guarding your heart and guarding other assets of yours. Again, it's not selfish to have an ATM card with a password on it. We don't give everyone access to our bank accounts, right? Because if we did, we'd be in trouble. Right. And it would cause us stress, and we get angry because some people would take advantage of that.
It's okay to take some time to respond instead of reacting when you're treated poorly.
Mhm.
Yeah, 100%.
Don't react in the heat of the moment. Take time out and value your feelings. Yes. Press pause.
Right.
Anger turned inward is depression. It can be. It can be.
Mm-hmm.
And then you feel so intense and you don't know how to deal with those things. What depression becomes is, I don't care. I just unplug. I'm checked out. I don't care about me. I don't care about life. I don't care about anything. I feel empty. And that's a really low place to be, right? And so you don't want to let yourself get there. So anger is better than that because you're caring. I care that you upset me. I care that you abused me. I care that you lied about me. I care that you hurt me. And this is a good thing.
Right. Yeah. I am not my anger. Yeah, thank goodness.
Yes.
I can pause and assess my anger. Yeah, absolutely. I hope this is, giving you an opportunity to really say, oh, wow, I can do this. And not be near afraid of anger when I have that feeling. No, now there's somewhere to go with it. I know what to do with it. I can evaluate it. I can pause. I can take a look at it. Say and notice, what is this telling me? Absolutely. We don't have to be afraid of anger. So many times I think we're really afraid of anger. Really, the way you opened us up tonight, as women, we're afraid to be angry women, so we just keep stuffing and stuffing and stuffing instead of saying, hey, what is this telling me? And saying it's just an emotion and I need to pay attention.
And we're afraid of other people's anger too. And for sure, it's unpleasant. It's unpleasant in an angry interaction with people. It's unpleasant. And I think if we can stay calm, the Bible's true. A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up strife. And so if you've ever been in an angry episode with someone and they're angry, and you're angry that they're angry and they're angry at your anger, and it just kind of escalates, right? And so, I've been in stores where you're cranky and you're snarky to the clerk and they're snarky back, and that doesn't help. You get snarky back and they get snarky, and it just gets worse and worse and worse, or your kids or your husband. And so if we can control our side of the street and respond with compassion, curiosity, gentleness to their anger, it usually can de-escalate the situation. It doesn't mean that what's wrong isn't wrong, but it means that you can talk about it in a civil way.
Beautiful.
All right, good. Well, join us tomorrow. We're going to talk about how to reboot your negative responses. So kind of a takeoff from today, not just anger, but fear, depression, other things. How do you reboot your negative responses so that you can begin to respond in a God-honoring way? All of us mess up. All of us mess up. We all do. And so we have to know how to reboot, because again, I've shared this in our Facebook Lives this week before, but getting healthy, ladies, does not mean you never make a mistake.
Right.
It means that you know how to reboot when you make a mistake, and that you're able to look at the mistake, and instead of getting angry at yourself, what's wrong with me? Nothing. You made a mistake. You didn't take good care of yourself in that moment. Okay, what do you want to learn from that? Instead of, why do I always make the same mistake? You don't have to always make the same mistake if you learn from it. So we're going to talk about that tomorrow. All right?
All right. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Elise. Appreciate you. And I will see you all tomorrow at 10 o'clock, not 10 o'clock, at noon Eastern time, 10 o'clock my time, but noon Eastern time. We will be back on this channel. And I think Coach Susan will be with me, and we'll be talking about how do we reboot. So I think that will be, nope, it's Diana who will be with me tomorrow. I think it'll be really helpful to learn that it's important for you to know how to reboot, because we all have to do it all the time. Just like every day you have to wash. Every day you have to brush your teeth. You have to reboot. You have to re-cleanse. You have to put your makeup on. You have to sleep every day. There's certain things we have to do as self-care, and one of them is knowing how to reboot.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. Talk about that tomorrow. All right. Take care. God bless. Bye-bye.